So Ron, it's time for the big reveal.
Well, this is it.
Holy cow. That is huge. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice till you get right up next to it.
Well, one of the things I was trying to do with the design is when you saw a picture of it, you don't realize what size it is.
Yeah, because this kind of reminds me of some of your smaller work.
Everything's proportionate. When you go up, you got to rescale everything. So that's.
Yeah. So this is like the ones you make. This size are like the Oklahoma version. This is like the Amazon rainforest version with the leaves.
Right.
That is so cool, and it's.
Yeah, and I just get a magic marker and I just start drawing on it.
So you drew lines and out and.
Right.
Did you, now when you do something like this, you always modify, right? You stay somewhat true to it, or?
I start out, normally I'll split it up in segments so I can make sure I come out, but on this one I didn't know, I just started drawing it, and when I got around to the other side, it came out right.
That's cool.
I got lucky for a change.
And one of the things that you do, I think, which is really, I didn't do it, important is you overlap leaves. That's why you leave the depth in, right?
Right.
So it makes a lot more work when you're carving, but boy, the effect is nice because then you wind up with something that's more three-dimensional.
That's the hardest thing to get through to people is you got to set layers back.
Yeah.
And let it lap on top of each other.
So this, did I even ask her, is this sycamore?
Sycamore.
Sycamore, okay. And just what type of finish on the outside?
Lacquer.
Lacquer? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cool. I mean, the design goes all the way down into the bottom. I imagine too you turn the bottom, or carve the bottom too.
Right.
You got that, Stan? I'll let you move it. I'm not going to do it. Oh, man, it's a little dark in there, but I can see it all comes to a point right here. The leaves come in like they're coming out of a central spot.
Right.
That's neat. And there's a little spalting on this, too, isn't there?
Yeah, it had started to spalt from sitting out there on the yard, so.
Yeah, because, well, you didn't have it out there that long, though, did you? Or have you had this quite a while? The raw piece of wood?
Yeah, it hadn't been sitting there very long.
Yeah.
And then the inside, I did a whole different feeling on the inside because I wanted it to be dark on the inside so these holes would show.
Stan, can you help me? We'll tilt it so Brian can see inside there.
I got in there and went crazy with a sponge and some stain.
Oh, I see. That's really cool. And it's smooth. I mean, you did some good sanding.
We did a lot of sanding inside.
Yeah, a lot of sanding inside. Yeah, and you got to reach all the way in there. It's got to get a little old after a while.
Well, that's why I was inside of it, because leaning over in there working all day, you'd get up the next morning with a backache.
Wow, and you still went ahead, it's hard to see, but you still went ahead and carved the leaves on the inside.
That's what I was doing inside that one picture. I worked inside of it one day.
Yeah.
And spent 2 hours getting all the sawdust out of my hair from them working on the outside of it.
So you're inside sanding, they're outside sanding.
Well, I did all the carving on the inside from inside.
I might point out one thing. When Ron drew this out, he did it, as he said, in a big rush. And,
yeah.
I mean, he got through with it quickly. But he also had these leaves that were overlapped, but he had them marked, shaded, the ones that were behind. So
okay.
When Guy and I started sawing, we knew which one was up and which one was down.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it makes a big difference. I mean, this is just incredible. Is this probably a project you'd never take on by yourself, is it?
Well, it'd be awful difficult to do it by yourself, especially the turning. I could carve it by myself, but to turn it, I guess a guy could do it. It'd just take a lot longer.
Any really big life lessons or lessons you learned about doing something this size? I mean, there's certain things, if anybody at home wants to be crazy enough to try this, what you have to keep in mind?
The problem is having a lathe that's big enough to handle that kind of weight.
Yeah.
And once we had a tailstock on it, it went real smooth. We didn't have any problems with it.
Same old turning techniques, just got to be smart.
Once we got it hollowed out to a point, we were able to take all that weight off of it and then turn it loose from the tailstock. And we built a special tool rest to get inside of it.
Yeah.
We made a tool rest that was made out of 10-inch wide, 3/4-inch plywood laminated together.
Okay.
And we had it sitting on a flat table that just the bottom of it just cleared the edge.
Yeah.
And then on the end of that was a piece of metal for the tool to rest on.
Wow.
So we could move it and extend into the length of this bowl,
Yeah.
which is a tough thing to do. And once we had that built, then it was pretty easy. It's just a matter of waiting for it to cut out.
It's physics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Ron, since you were kind enough not to wake us up at 1:30 in the morning, you're gonna show us how you do a layout and some carving here. But before we get to that, it's time for your turn. Well, no, I didn't get an email about that tree, although I would love to. I actually got an email that relates to this waste wood pile. It looks like a dump, doesn't it? But I got an email where a guy was asking me, what is spalting? Well, spalting is a fungal growth that comes up inside of a tree. And when it does, it stains the wood. Makes some really pretty designs in the wood. You know, you can find a tree in the wild like that, but it's not that easy sometimes because the wood's often rotted away. How do you make spalting yourself? You make your own spalting farm. Each piece of wood here is in contact with the dirt. Now, moisture comes up through the soil, comes into the wood, and it starts to grow a fungus. It might take a few months, but you'll get that beautiful color. Now, this piece of wood has a crack in top of it because it's exposed. One way to prevent that is you can put dirt and leaves on top of it. That'll actually help you get spalting going down too, or just throw a tarp on it. But now, you know what spalting is and how to make it. Ron, you've got one impressive lathe here. I'm surprised you didn't do all that turning here instead of guys.
Well, this will only turn about 4 feet, and
Only 4 feet, huh?
the other one's quite a bit bigger.
What can I help you with?
You want to roll that back out of the way?
Yeah.
Use the crank down here.
Oh, that helped. Okay.
There you go.
So you got a piece, well, that's really cool. So you have a piece mounted there right now, right?
Right.
And,
One of the advantages to the lathe like this is I can put a boring bar in here and bore a hole down a piece, you know, so big, and that
Wow.
takes a lot of the work out of it.
yeah.
So
And so you have all your tools right here where they're handy to grab.
that's right.
Yeah.
Everything's handy, and this is noisy.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's your on-off that engages it?
I turn all the outside with a bowl gouge
Yeah.
and all the inside with a scraper.
Wow. Okay. So you just got a little bit of shaping left on this.
Yeah. I just basically show you what. If it doesn't come off, we'll be all right.
I'll get my catcher's mitt on. And I guess this is kind of a good time to say, I mean, you did the giant bowl, but you know, you're one of the better known turners in the world, and you still make things that are they're small.
Sure. Sometimes just something small like this is a little bit more fun
Yeah.
because it doesn't take all day.
Well, and two, I mean, how many people are going to have room on their coffee table for that large thing back there as opposed to this? I mean, the collector who's going to buy that bowl from you is going to be a very special person.
That's all.
Or you're going to wind up owning it for the rest of your life.
Well, we're really doing those trying to get into the market of art in public places.
Oh, I see.
So it's not, we're not really making them to go in a home. We're making them to go in a lobby of a big building or out on the patio with cast it in bronze. And it just opens up a whole different market for us.
Yeah, and because the scale matches the large areas you'd want to be in.
The problem now is we got to have several of them to show that we've got a body of work.
I see.
So we're getting ready to start one now that's bigger than that one.
5 days turning, 2 months carving, 5 months sanding. Yeah, I'll be able to roll out a bunch of them about the time you hit your 80th birthday, I think.
That's about it.
So once you get this shaped on the outside, that's when you do the inside, the hollowing?
Right.
Okay. But do you, when you're done with the shaping and hollowing and everything,
Once
use-
I get it shaped, then I
Yeah.
go to the inside.
Okay.
And I just use a different tool.
So it's a natural edge. So this is the bark right here.
Right.
Right.
I'm gonna end up cutting that off of there, but
Yeah.
then I use a tool like this to go to the inside
Okay.
of
We've
it.
used this in the show before. Now, I guess you can turn that off. So when it's on here and you've shaped the outside and you hollowed it, do you go ahead and sand it before you draw it out, or do you just leave it with the tool finish
I
on it?
just leave it with the tool finish because I'm gonna cut all that away anyway.
So do you do the drawing out here or over there?
I do it over here in my lap.
Okay, let's go take a look at that.
Okay.
Ron, this looks kind of familiar.
Yeah, that's a piece of spalted wood. I'm just gonna kind of show you how I lay out a piece.
Okay.
I try to start from the center and make me a line that's going to show how it flows. Once you get that done, it's just simply coming back in here and filling in the blanks, you know.
So this line is really important because it bases the flow of the whole piece.
That's what makes the whole piece work.
And the curve is really important rather than doing a straight line.
Sometimes I like to just flare them out and let them do their own thing.
Yeah. Now, do you remember which plant this was that inspired you to
Well,
this shape?
this was a fern that I saw in a canoe going through the hippo trails in Botswana, Africa, South Africa.
Wow.
And I've, of course, modified them quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I've got some of them growing out here in the yard, so.
Well, that's cool. Well, I know that you and Patty drew a lot off nature for your inspiration for your work.
Right, just about everything we did was, but, you know, it's taken from nature, but it doesn't look like anything in nature because I've stylized it so
Mhm.
much.
But it looks close enough that people accept it.
Right.
Yeah. And so you're really freehanding this, but sometimes when it's a very complicated drawing, you go ahead and draw it out on paper first, right?
Yeah, there's some pieces, well, like for instance, that bird,
Yeah. Oh, your pelican?
my pelican,
Yeah.
I had to draw it out and kind of work out what I was going to do, but
Because there's a lot of framing you're doing with the flowers and leaves around it that you're an artist. You basically make a painting in wood.
yeah, I'm taking the bird and putting him in his own habitat, so it looks pretty natural.
Right. Oh, you're a good artist. I can't draw worth a lick.
Well, you know, I've done it for almost 40 years now, and it's just second nature to me. But every time I go to do a new piece, it's always, okay, what are you going to do? And sometimes it takes me a year to get the confidence, like that dragon piece upstairs. I had that drawn on the piece of wood for like 8 or 9 months before I finally got the courage to go in there and carve it.
Oh, wow.
And I don't care how much you've done, it's always that thing that you've got to get in your mind that shows you what you got to take off and leave on there.
Now, when you're working with a piece like this where you have spalting on the side,
Right.
that also affects your design sometimes, doesn't it? Because it's so dramatic.
Well,
You can always put that back on later.
I can glue that back on. I just come in here and let it be part of the design.
Yeah. Now, you know, one thing, we were explaining to people how to get spalting, but when you're turning a piece of wood like this, the spalting dust is not that dangerous to you, is it?
Well,
It's just like normal dust.
yeah, I've got a
Oh, the air cleaner right behind
air
you?
cleaner
Yeah.
behind me, and that sucks all the dust off of me,
Yeah.
so I don't, and I'll wear a mask.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, when I want to keep track of what goes behind and what stays in front, and I try to make it all the same.
So use a dashed line to show
So
behind.
then I've got a void here that I've got to cut out.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then so you've made it deeper here, higher here. That's gone completely.
And as I come around and work this, I try to make these all be different, but yet I don't want one hole here and 3 holes over here and none over here. I want it to be balanced, so I want my composition and my balance to be right.
Wow.
And that's what takes the time, and I may have to come in here and take a piece of sandpaper and use it for an eraser. And what I mean is, say I've drawn something on there, the eraser's just going to smear it. So the sandpaper will take it off of there.
That's cool.
And I can go back in and redraw whatever I want to change to it. So, but for the most part, it's just because I've done them so many times, I can do them in my sleep. That's basically how I would start off, and that's how I did that pattern that's on the big bowl.
Man, Ron, and I thought you had a lot of turning tools. Are all these for carving?
That's all what I use to carve.
Wow, so what do we have? I mean, rasps, files?
Riflers, I don't know how you pronounce it, but anyway, I use a lot of those. They're made for stone carving. And
so is this like a carbide or a super tough steel?
Super tough steel, and they wear out just like sandpaper, and then I use all kinds of grinders.
Are these air-powered and electric-powered? And
both.
Yeah.
And I keep so many because I don't like to have to stop and change the ends of them all the time, so I've got enough to do a job without changing.
See, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you got quite a few.
I'm doing a quick change, and I don't have to remount everything.
And then you even have little sanders that have
sander,
detail
inline.
edges on to do different stuff.
It'll do so much, but
Yeah.
you still have to end up doing a lot of it by hand.
Now, I know it takes a long time to carve something, but could you show us just a couple techniques that you
Yeah,
use?
basically I work on a mount. That's why I leave this plug on the bottom of it, is so I can mount it to my stand.
Okay, so
And this lets me work it so I can move my hands around
Yeah.
and turn it wherever I'm going to carve it.
So there's a ball in there, and this attaches to there with a couple bolts.
Right.
And is this an old barber?
This is an old drawing table
Oh, drawing
that I had in the studio. So it goes up and down and moves around and around. So it gives you full control of what you're working on.
Yeah.
And gives you both hands, because to do this you got to have both hands. You can't sit here and carve with these things with one hand. It'll jump around on you.
Yeah.
I use a power saw that's air powered,
Oh, okay, it's like a blade in there.
right, and I drill holes in the areas, and then I go in there and cut out the blanks.
Okay, so you stick the blade in there and just
Right.
so.
So you're cutting in there and you're cutting all around that.
And that'll also cut in the edges up here.
Right. And
Yeah.
I don't cut right on the line. I always come back from it a little bit.
Because you can't put wood
And
back on.
then I take the riflers and I go
Yeah.
in there and I match up to what all I got to do.
Wow. So
If you try to cut it, you're going to end up with a saw blade on the inside where you don't want it.
right.
And I don't like to use wood fillers, so that's basically it.
And what's this?
When I'm carving, I use a Fordham,
Mm-hmm.
and I use these little carbide cutters, and they're really good for doing inline work, like I'm going to recess that back in,
Mm-hmm.
and it also lets me scoop out and blend in everything that I'm wanting to carve with.
So is this scoped about 20,000 RPM or
Yeah, but I don't turn it that high. I use it about like that.
Yeah, nice and quiet.
Yeah, it's basically pretty quiet. So I can come in here then and I can.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, well, this wood's good and dry. You want your wood to be dry to use these kind of tools.
Yeah.
You can turn it off.
So, and that's what this is behind us because this turns this way. It's a big air filter, right?
Collector, and it sucks the dust off of me so I don't breathe all that stuff. Yeah. And the heavy stuff falls to the floor.
Ron, I really want to thank you for letting us come by and watch you make that giant bowl because that was really cool. I mean, Guy and Stan, you all did some great work, and I imagine our viewers had quite a time watching how you went through the process.
It's been fun, and we did want to make something that's kind of showed everybody what we did and the process we went through. And it kind of let us study it and know where we had some mistakes and what we do next on the next one to make it a little easier.
And if it wasn't for people like you, people like us wouldn't have half the techniques we have. Somebody's got to be pushing the envelope out there.
Well, you know, Guy's a tool man. He knows where to get the tools.
Yeah.
Stan is too, and he's also an inventor, so he helped invent some of the stuff. So between the three of us, my imagination and their hard work, we got it done.
Oh, well, it was great. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Thank you all.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the Big Bowl project. and our tour of Hearthstone. This is a fantastic place. And I want to thank Ron and Stan and Guy for all their patience and letting us follow along and show what they were doing. Heck of a project, a lot of work, and those guys are really something else. So until the next time on the Woodturning Workshop,